Welcome to the Mechanical PE Exam Prep Podcast, the podcast where I give mechanical engineers like you the tools and motivation to get your professional engineering license and take your career to the next level. All right, welcome, Julian. Thanks for coming on. How you doing?
Pretty good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So take us from the beginning. Give us a little bit of your background from
Sure.
school and work, and
Sure.
what you're up to, and what got you to want to do the PE exam.
Yeah, so I graduated back in December 2013 with mechanical engineering, and I've been working in the utility industry as a technically my role is titled field engineer, but it's more of like a construction engineering like assistant to the project manager kind of role. And there's not really like a one point in my life where all right, like I need to get the PE. It's accumulation of different influences that kind of pushed me. But I can tell you that the tipping point was a position that had opened, and I wanted to kind of apply, and I knew that the PE would open doors for me, and that's what made me sign up for the PE. But one of the inspirations that I need to address is would be my father, who is the same exact thing, PE, mechanical, thermal fluid systems. He took the same tests as I did. And ever since he did it, he did take it like towards when he was like early 50s, late 50s. And he failed 4 or 5 times, I believe.
Wow.
And I saw him like studying in the dinner table when I was a teenager at that point. He sacrificed a lot of time. And when he finally passed, and he didn't give up, so he was a good example, right? When he finally passed, I think I just passed my FE at that point, and then he was like, "You need to take it ASAP."
Wow.
So, but I kept like ignoring him, right? And it took me 11 years, because I took the FE back in 2013. So now 2024, all those years, he was like, "When are you going to take your PE? When are you going to take it?" But like I said, back in December, I wanted to apply, at a higher level of engineering positions, and I knew that the PE would open doors for me. And another encouragement that kind of pushed me to get the PE was one of my coworkers. We started at the same time, and he secretly took the PE without telling anybody back in the pandemic, back in
Oh,
2020, when the work was slow because everything was halted. He took it, he passed it, and then all of a sudden he got a new job. And I'm like, wait, what?
oh, wow.
And then I was like, I want to do that. And I was like, well, do you have your PE? I was like, no. So those are the two kind of like stepping stone. And then finally, that's when I made the push back in late December when I was like trying to gauge it. So yeah, I signed up back in January. I started with the PPI course, the self-study guide. In the beginning, maybe the first few weeks, I was making, pretty good headway. I was doing the basic engineering, like the symbols, the units and whatnot. And then I got to the economics part, still making good progress, every now and then. And then things really started getting difficult for me as far as absorption when I hit heat transfer. I started really just getting frustrated. And I remember one of your podcasts, you said that it's supposed to be a frustration and a joy, and it's supposed to be like a 50-50. It can't be like 90% frustration, right? And that's
Yeah.
what I was doing. Every time I would hit the books, I would just be frustrated because I didn't get it. I just it's been a while, like, right? 11 years since I
Yeah.
took, you know, heat transfer. And so I wasn't getting the material, but I still pushed on. Like I was like, it's probably gonna suck now, but it'll be better later. So I just kept going. I managed to like pass there's like self-assessment quiz that the PPI course would give you. So I managed to pass those. And then it got worse at fluids when it started teaching me concepts that it got too complicated fast. It got deep fast.
Mm.
I ended up having to read because it's one of the self-study portals. It didn't have an instructor, so I had to keep reading and rereading and rereading. And I would study at night, so this stuff would just put me to sleep out of boredom. And yeah, I've reached my tipping point. I think like late January, and I started looking for another curriculum, and that's when I found you. In fact, there was like a lot of different ones that I was looking at. But I think I settled for yours because you mentioned that it was beginner friendly, that you were like, I will start you even if you're out of college or out of school for X amount of years. We'll build your foundation slowly but surely. And then after that, you could run. I think I was trying to run before I could, before I could crawl. No, I know that sounds corny and cheesy, but it really is true. I hit the pavement hard, like when I was trying to study, and that's normal, right? When you embark on a big task such as this one, you're so excited that you're just, I don't care
Yeah.
how hard it is, I'm just gonna go. And I wasn't making good progress, and I got frustrated. So yeah, that's when I saw your program. I watched your fundamental videos. I think I gave myself 2 weeks to finish all of that. I listened to it twice, I remember, and then the second time I took notes, and actually like really like understand the processes, especially like in thermo, because that's one of the core subjects that that really I was weak at. And so after maybe 2 weeks of video orientation and all of that good stuff, that's when I started doing the problems. The problems itself, I remember the beginning when I started the book, I made a schedule, a very strict schedule. And if you're studying right now, I think my biggest advice to you, if you're listening, is you need to do a scheduled vacation in there.
Hmm.
I think for me, knowing that I had like these like little mini breaks in between got me through it
So you
because
scheduled breaks right from
Mhm,
the outset.
I did. Looking back, I think that's what made me like not lose motivation, because
Mm.
you can't see like the end of the tunnel. Yeah, like I understand why people would like drop off and fail, right? And it's not like a hill going up all the time. You have to go down a little bit too. You have to descend and then go up again, and eventually you'll hit the top. So that's what I did. I scheduled, I think, one week in April where I took off, and then another week in May when I took off. And I scheduled myself to do 5 problems a day. I remember consulting to you about that. You said that was a little bit fast. Personally, I didn't think so, because some of the problems were like really long and frustrating, but some of them were easy. So I think
Mm.
five is the magic number for me. And it would take me 30 problems a week, which is basically like an entire chapter, right? And then after I finished the entire problem or the entire book in 6 weeks with the break included, I did the book again. And it's very similar to watching a movie twice. The first time you watch it, you were just like, oh man, that was a lot of information, right? But the second time, you really find new Easter eggs, like, oh, I didn't catch that the first time. To me, it was exactly that. It felt like a different book. uh, I did the problem 6 weeks ago, but like I had no memory of it, and I ended up relearning everything. Kind of, it really solidified my foundation, and I think that's what it boils down to, is like really harping on the foundation, because nobody comes out of a PE exam thinking that like, oh, I aced that. That was so easy.
Yeah.
Nobody. I don't think I've
No.
heard. If they do say that, I think they're embellishing, and they like to
Yeah, even if somebody's
to
confident that they passed, they're not going to actually say or think that
yeah,
they aced it. It's
yeah.
really not like that.
So that's why I'm like, okay, I need to work on my foundation here, because they could throw something completely random, and they did. And I can't control that. That's a roll of the dice. You can't know what the random questions will be, but for sure what you can control is the foundations. They will give you a lot of that, and that's what I did. I did the second book. I did the book twice. Second time around, it really just I understood the concepts from the back of my hand, and I started applying the same nuances, or the same theories in at work. I remember one time specifically where they were asking, because they were welding some fittings in the pipe, and then the welder, after he was done welding, he was like, "All right, what's the cooling time in this?" And then he was trying to look it up on the standard, on the manual. Right. I was like, oh, I know what that is. It's the one with the logarithmic in there, and then the time is on the exponent. You put the initial
Oh, the transient
transient.
temperature.
There you go.
Yeah.
Lump capacitance, heat transfer over time. Right. There it is. And then since it was steel pipe, I figured, oh, this is you calculate the Biot number. This is going to be treated as a lump capacitance, as one thing. So I was able to do my calculations, and I was said, oh yeah, the cooling time for this is 43 minutes. And then they were like, did you just make that up? I was like, no, I could show you. This is how it's done. And so that's what the second time when I did the book, that's what it did to me. It really
Mm.
made the concepts. I was not a plug and chugger, because I did read about that, where people would do, I don't know, 500 problems, and then they still wouldn't get it because they're just plugging and chugging. They're not really understanding like what's happening behind those equations, right?
Yeah, it's
So
so common and it's scary.
mhm.
It's like we're trying to learn without actually learning.
Mm,
It's we're so resistant to doing it the hard way that we insist on doing it the easy way, but the easy way ends up being longer because
easy
and it's
is jump volume.
it's
Yeah.
like sometimes the best way is just to go right through it, right through the hard stuff, and then you're
Mhm.
like you're bulletproof after that.
Mhm.
But I
And
interrupted you, so
yeah, yeah, no worries. Keep interrupting me. It gives me more things to talk about. But yeah, so I want to make an analogy, right? So junk volume, when you're trying to work out, you keep doing the same weight all the time. You're not really building muscle. You're not really challenging yourself. So that's why in your book, I appreciate that some of them were just obnoxiously hard. It was just
hopefully not too many.
there's no way this is going to be on the test. It took me 20 minutes, right? But it made me think, right? It made me like, oh, that's the reason why this problem is like this. I had to apply three different concepts to get to the final answer, right? So yeah, I did the problems the second time. I really understood it. I wasn't just doing easy problems that didn't really like make me think. I was doing hard problems. At first, it was very slow, and then eventually I got faster. The second time I did that, I tried to do as much as I can. I tried to do 30 problems in one sitting, and I timed myself. And then I graded myself partially, obviously, so that I could like really learn. And then I guess technically speaking, some of the problems that I had, some of the problems in the book, I did three times, because I really wanted to. It came to the point where like if a problem was so difficult, I would have to just do it right there and then redo it the same exact thing and really do it from scratch. And
Right.
that's what made me kind of like, okay, like I truly got it this time.
Yeah,
Um,
that resonates with my experience too when I was studying. I remember there were problems that were hard enough where I had to do exactly that. I had to redo it right there on the spot or the next day because
mm,
waiting a long time it would I would end up forgetting what the main
mm,
ideas were, and it was a
mm,
lot to work through. But what's really important, I want to kind of underline what you said earlier, which is that before you redid problems, you waited in some cases like 6 weeks to
mm,
repeat. So
mm,
you have to kind of fight your way through it the first time to do it at all, whether that happens in one sitting or over a day or two. And then you have to forget it for a while. And
mm,
then you have to hit yourself with that question again
mm,
and and fight through it again and try to whether it's recall or whatever. I think that's really important is to allow that time to lapse and
mm,
then repeat because that's when you dig the grooves in deeper. And
mm.
then after that, to me, it's like no one's going to take that from you. It's basically permanent knowledge.
It is, yeah, it is. It's going to take a while for me to forget all of the stuff that I learned through this entire studying process. Because yes, a lot of the learning also happens subconsciously, like in between, sleeps. I think I've read
Mm.
a few articles about that, where the last thing that you see before you go to bed, you'll end up like, subconsciously just putting that in the back of your brain, and you'll never forget it. And yeah, so another thing too that I forgot to mention in the beginning is that really your commitment. You need to write down your level of commitment before you start this. Because as I said earlier, that motivation will wane. It'll run out. But the only thing that stays objective is the commitment. Like, how bad do you really want this? I know it's corny, it's cheesy, but it really is true, at least for me. Um, there's a lot of stakes, there's a lot of personal things that are happening in my life where I told myself like I have to pass it this time. One of them is because I'm expecting, like my wife and I are expecting our second
Oh,
child.
that's
And
amazing.
yeah,
Congratulations.
so thanks. So I told myself, I remember the first time my son was born, my firstborn, I had no sleep. I had to sacrifice, my social life. I was just taking care of a newborn. So I told myself, if I fail this, there's no way I'm going to retake it again this year because I'll be sleep deprived, and that's one of the many reasons that I had to pass it the first time. I had to pass it this June. I can go on with many other reasons, but that was one of the biggest one, and so
That's a
I
huge
like
one.
I had to write that down. Career movement, all of that, like moving, etc. A lot of personal things that are happening. So I'm like, I need to just suffer now and do it once, and that's it. And I'm gonna leave it out there. I like to quote you. I'm gonna leave no stones unturned. It's one of the things that you said in your introduction video, and I did that. I came in with that approach. Hence, I made a schedule, right? A strict schedule with the scheduled break. And then, yeah. And after that, I did I finished the book the second time at the end of April. I took my first practice test like at the end of April, which is the NCEES one, the one that you pay like $50 for that. To me, that is the most similar to the actual thing. So I
Hmm.
got that first. I did horribly on that, which was expected, right? I did I think I did like the first 6 hours, and then on the sixth hour, I was just mentally fatigued.
Oh, you
Uh,
did that one as a simulation.
yeah, I did
Did
all of my practice exams, by the way, as
oh,
sim.
okay.
Mhm. Yeah,
Wow, that's intense.
right. So again, your level of commitment, right? How do you? So, and I think you warned me about like you don't have to do that, dude. You're overkilling. I was like, I think I kind of have to. I already told myself I was going to do it,
Yeah.
but
Well,
yeah.
to be fair, it's not like I would never tell anybody not to work on those problems in some context or another.
Uh-huh.
I just wanted to offer you the option to like kind of break it up and do 5 or 10 at a time, which you were
Yeah,
already doing 5 or 10 at a time.
yeah,
And that
yeah,
seemed like a natural sort of pace for you. But you wanted to simulate. So, hey,
yeah.
all
Yeah.
power to you.
Yeah. So I wanted to like simulate, and I wanted to like, if I took the test today, what would I get? And lo and behold, I failed. And so, which is fine. It was just like to test the waters. I had no stamina, mental stamina. My back started hurting. It was just everything. I
Mm.
got a migraine, headache. Like my body was just like, what the heck is going on? You're overthinking. You're thinking for this long. This is unnatural. I'm tapping out, right? So at the sixth hour, I tapped out, and then the next day, I did the remaining of the problems in the next 2 hours. And then finally, I finished your book for the second time. For me, I struggled with the psychometrics. I really couldn't grasp that, so I ended up doing the supporting topics and then the last few chapters or the last few problems. Maybe three times, I would say.
Hmm.
And I had to watch a lot of like psychometric videos online too. I had to supplement because I really didn't understand it. But once I finally, got comfortable and I finished it at the end of April, I dedicated, May, the entire month of May for just practice tests.
Yeah.
So every Sunday, I would tell, my wife, my family, my in-laws, who, by the way, who supported me throughout this entire process, because like I said earlier, I have a 3-year-old son. So I told them, hey, Sunday is practice exam day for the entire month of May. I'm gonna go to my cubicle and I'll just start from 8. I'll try to simulate it, right? I did the first practice exam from yours, and throughout the week I would review it, kind of like all of the problems that I missed, and even the ones that I got right, I would review them too, and I would
Hmm.
make a diary like myself, like this is what I did, this is what I did wrong, this is how I would do it. I would write a diary, read that again, and then redo the problems throughout that week. And then I think the second Sunday of May, I believe, is Mother's Day. So I did a scheduled, break on that. And then the third,
Perfect.
third, or I think I'm mixing up my Sundays now, but the next Sunday following that, I took the second practice exam again, or for the first time, and did the same thing. I wrote a diary. You threw in a lot of like random things in there, like the spring ones. I'm like, dude, I've never seen this before. I'm gonna get this wrong. But all of the thermo stuff, the heat transfer, the fluids, the psychrometrics, I got right. And to me, that's kind of that what matters. And I think I called you after that because I was kind of frustrated because I was like, I was expecting 80 or like 85. Why did I get another 70 something? Right. And I think you told me, I was like, well, did you get the core subjects right? And I was like, yeah. I was like, okay, then you're good. What are you complaining about? You kind of had to like calm me down a little bit. But yeah, so after that, I think I supplemented with another practice exam. I took the SLAE, the PE one, which was super hard. like really, really hard, unnecessarily hard. But then again, it made me, think, and made me like really understand the why I'm doing the problems. Because the problems were worded differently. They were asking for the different unknowns. And eventually, yeah, I did pass that one too in one sitting, the Sunday before the exam. The exam was Wednesday, and I took one final practice exam, which is the NCEES one. And I think 6 weeks has passed since I took it the first time. So I had forgotten majority of it. I took it, yeah, and I think I got an 81. And I told myself, all right, this is it, man. I'm ready. Let's get this over with. And I remember talking to you the day before, the Tuesday, and you asked me like, hey, if tomorrow you show up and then they said that like, oh, it's closed, like you can't take it, would you be frustrated or would you be relieved? And I said, I would be so mad. And then you were like, okay, you're ready. Let's go. So yeah, the day of the exam, went there super early, super anxious, by the way. But they let me in. Finally, like around like 7:40, they did like the orientation. I think I was the only PE mechanical candidate in there. I overheard other people like taking the FE, and then some other random practice. But yeah, the morning session, I did really well. I think I must have guessed on two of them. No random. I forgot to mention that I did in the whole month of May. Not only did I dedicate that entire month for practice exams only, I also printed out the handbook, the supplemented handbook, and I started reading that every day. Like machine design. I just not like reading like as in, because it's not a textbook, right? But
Right.
like to familiarize myself where things are at, right?
Okay.
And highlighting that, and then like starting to like memorize like each page is like, oh, when I turn this page, I'm gonna see the heat transfer equations. When I turn this page, it'll be the radiation. When I turn, like I started like really like memorizing where things were. That really helped. And
Wow.
that got me through the morning portion, because there were some questions in there, and I was like, oh, I know exactly where this is. And so morning portion was the breeze. And then afternoon, I walk in there. I try to go in. I didn't have my driver's license on me. Apparently, when I went to go get lunch, I dropped my driver's license from my pocket, and it fell under the car
Oh
adjacent to
God.
me.
You must have been freaking out,
Oh my gosh, you have no idea, no freaking clue how I'm.
especially because you were on cruise control at that point. You only
Yeah,
guessed on two problems. You're like, this thing
yeah.
is basically,
This is in the back.
it's halftime and you're up 30 points.
Yeah, I was in the lead. I was gonna blow a 3-0 lead. Oilers and the hockey reference. But yeah, so I got in. I went back to the parking lot, scrambling, turning my entire, my seat, and then I freaking found it. It was right there. I got in, and I think I had 2 minutes to spare. Otherwise, it would have eaten up because you have 50 minutes for the lunch break.
Oh, and your clock's going to start running.
If you don't show up on time, that you're
Oh,
stuck.
wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, so I got in flustered, so like panicking, like anxiety to the roof. The first problem was like, oh my gosh, what the heck is this? Skip, flag. Second problem, same thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, what are these random problems? I think I must have skipped maybe two or three. And then finally I recognized one. I was like, oh, I could do this. I could do this. And so I started doing that. Finally, like the nerves calmed down a little bit. But yeah, man, the second half was hard. That was tough. It felt like a different test. It was not a walk in the park at all. So I actually ran out of time in the second half of the exam, just because like the nature of the problems. I don't know what happened, but it was just significantly harder from the first. So I did some guesstimation, some random guess. I think I must have randomly guessed, I don't know, 8, 12, and then educated guess like 10 or something like that.
Okay.
So I started like running numbers through my head. I was like, okay, assuming that I get all of those wrong, which is highly unlikely, I think I still pass, right? So I walked out of there. I'm like, man, this is a toss up. If I fail, I understand. I accept that, because the afternoon portion was hard. But if I pass, like, oh yeah, then it was either way. It was either or. It was like a 60-40. Like if I
Hmm.
pass, I pass. If I fail, I get it. But yeah, the waiting period, I don't think anybody talks about this. 7-day waiting period. I know you're gonna tell me that like, oh, when I took it, I waited 6 months. Yeah. But yeah, the 7-day waiting period was the longest week of my life. could not sleep, couldn't celebrate, which
No,
I
you can't, you reach this finish line, but is it really the finish line? So you're like in this
right.
holding period.
Right. And what's ironic is it was my birthday the day after. So I was like, what am I going to do on my birthday? Like, I can't celebrate. Like, I don't deserve any of this. But looking back, I think I should have, because no matter if you pass or fail, you did an undertaking. I would tell my past self this, that like, hey, you're a finisher. It's not like, at the 6th hour you quit like you did last time, when you took the first test. You finished.
Yeah.
Even if you pass or fail, you're a finisher of this marathon, of this event. You deserve some credit. You deserve some celebration. Like, don't go overboard. But you deserve. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think an exam is binary, it's pass fail,
Mhm.
but that's not really how learning works. Learning is incremental, and there's some arbitrary threshold that's been set, which means that somebody's going to pass by the skin of their teeth and somebody's going to miss it by one problem.
Mm.
And the person who passes by the skin of their teeth is going to be a minimally qualified professional engineer, and they're going to be out there potentially designing and stamping drawings, and they're going to be in the mix. And the
Oh,
person that just misses the mark, should they go home and beat themselves up about all the things that they, woulda, coulda, shoulda, right?
mhm.
Or is it just that they weren't there yet? You go back, you regroup, and, you make some changes, maybe listen to this episode and take some of the advice that you're sharing with us and say, okay, what are some ways that I can update my process? Because you
Yeah.
mentioned at the beginning, and I think you hit the nail on the head, there's elements that are outside of your control.
Mhm.
But what you can control is your approach, your mindset, and your own process. And when
Mhm.
you do that, effectively, it usually leads to a positive outcome. But
Mhm.
even if you just move, like, let's suppose you were way off the mark when you started and you got much closer, but just missed.
Mhm.
You still made a ton of progress. So I think you have the right to acknowledge that and celebrate
Yeah.
that a bit. Of course, there's still work to be done in that case, but
Mhm.
fortunately for you, it worked
Yeah.
out. So, but
Yeah.
the point I think of what you're saying is that there's this whole mental turmoil that you go through in that waiting
Yeah.
period.
It's a very stressful time. Yeah, couldn't sleep. Yeah, did a little bit of celebration that weekend because I took the test on Wednesday, and I read on the forums that every Wednesday they release the exams, the
Yep.
results. So yeah, that Tuesday night prior, man, I could not sleep. But what got me through though, and this is me speaking as an engineer, is you just have to be objective. Like your feeling of like, oh, that problem, yeah, that's subjective. Like, oh, I think I got that right. Especially if you did a random guess or like an educated guess, that's subjective. That's not an objective thought. So if you chase that, that rabbit hole, or if you go through that rabbit trail, you're just gonna end up like overthinking, and you're gonna get stressed over nothing. And I tried to remain objective as possible, and I told myself, like, look, did you study 300 plus hours? Did you do dance book twice? Yes. You take 5 practice exams, like, in one sitting. Yes. Okay. Then what else can you do? Like the 7 days, it's going to be the longest 7 days of your life. But I mean, there's nothing you can do but hurry up and wait. And so I got the email on Wednesday morning, but you emailed after that, so I saw your email first. I was like, any good news? And I logged in at, I don't know, like 6:30 in the morning. I logged in my bed, and I grabbed my wife. I'm like, oh my gosh, the green bar right there. I think my wife cried. I almost cried. But yeah, it's done. Heavy burden has been lifted. And yeah, and I think honestly, it was the foundations that got me through this entire thing. Can't control the random questions that they'll throw at you. There's going to be problems that you will miss. The exam is designed like that, right? They're going to throw in some things that you've never seen before. All you could do is just trust in your engineering intuition, trust in your ability to deduce, figure things out on the spot. Don't panic just because you haven't seen it. Doesn't mean that it's not in the handbook somewhere. And the ones that you should get, you absolutely need to get those. There's no questions asked. You have to get that. And I think why people would fail, not only in your course, but any other course, is that if the course like yours, right, yours is already condensed, right? I remember you telling me you tried to add more stuff and it kept getting bigger and bigger, right? Yours is condensed version. And if you cut corners on the already condensed version, what the heck? You're going to fail, dude. So you have to really do every problem, understand it, It's only 329. I mean, I don't know. You're the author. How many how many
Yeah.
problems?
No, you got it.
329.
You know the
Okay.
program well.
Yeah. And if you're gonna like, I'm just gonna do 200, dude,
Yeah.
blame yourself. Yeah,
And
right.
honestly, this is what people have told me straight up when in the rare case that they don't pass, I'll say, "Well, what do you think happened?" And they'll tell me like, "Well, I kind of cherry picked. Like, I don't like a heat transfer is kind of hard for me. So I kind of skip some of those." And it's like, "Oh man,
Why?
you need to." Well, it's of course it's obvious after the fact, but
Yeah,
maybe they
yeah,
thought like, if I just
yeah,
yeah. You want to move incrementally closer,
yeah.
but there is an objective amount
Mhm.
of stuff that you need to just put in the bag, and
Yeah.
there's no way around that. And there shouldn't be, because again, these folks are going to be qualified professional engineers
Mhm.
that people are going to look to, and there just need to be a certain number of things that they can do. And
Mhm.
there can't be any doubt about that. And
Mhm.
otherwise, the letters don't mean anything. And I don't think
Exactly.
we want that.
Mhm. Yeah, you don't want to dilute that. Yeah, that's definitely something that you take pride of. And if you're doing those problems and you're tempted to skip, if you're listening to this, just remember that if it's hard, that means you're learning. If it's hard,
Yeah.
that means there's some resistance. It's kind of like when working out, if you're trying to hit that one rep max or you're trying to, push for that final rep, right? That's when the muscle building happens. That's when the mind muscle connection happens. And if you're stuck at a problem and you're like, I'm just gonna skip, like, no, dude, you gotta go. Head it straight on. That's how you learn. That's how you create these simulations of, do you panic if you see something that's hard, or do you face it with confidence.
That's great advice. You're literally training your mind and your
Mhm.
emotions to deal with the challenge that's in front of you.
And I think that's one of the things too that you told me to calm my nerves the day before, is that throughout this 5 month process, I've developed the skill to figure stuff out, and that's what a true PE is to figure, because that's how it is in real life. You have to figure stuff out. You may not have like 6 minutes, right? You may have like an entire week to figure things out, but that's the innate ability to have that. Figure stuff out, apply the foundations that you know for sure, and then come up to a solid. That's basically it, man.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
like
that's a perfect place to leave it. That captures the spirit of what
that. Mhm.
engineering is all about. And, those are the folks that I want to work with, are the ones who are working the problem and they're thinking about it and trying to come up with creative solutions. And you're right, it's not always an exam environment where your time is constrained, but
Mhm.
interesting engineering problems have that texture to them where they challenge you and make you think about something in a different way and come up with something. And hopefully, the exam is a good representation of what we're asking of professional engineers. And I think it is. I'm obviously biased. That's why I got involved in doing this and working with folks like you. So it's been a real pleasure, and congratulations. Anything,
Pleasure was mine, Dan.
what's coming up next? What does this mean for you? Obviously,
Yeah. Well,
you're
now I've got a lot of different options to apply for. Before I only had like kind of like one career path, but now I could go into, the one that I wanted to apply for is basically like the gas engineer, like the person that kind of stamps the drawings and the approves, kind of like the engineer that I would report to. But now it opens doors for the distribution side, like the planning side of things. Transmission side also opened up. Standards engineering also opened up for me, because all of those kind of, they don't require a PE, but it's a nice to have kind of. But
yeah.
yeah, hoping to get that done sometime this year. Well, first of all, I still need to finish the PE application process. Nobody talks about that in this podcast, but I need to do that. There's a news flash: if you just passed, you still need to take one more little quiz called the California ethics exam thingy. Don't worry, that one's easy. I've been studying for that one. It's
Yeah,
not. It's
different states
not
have different little extras like that. Yeah.
So I need to take that still. I still need to work on the letter of recommendations and whatnot, because in Cali, you sit first and then you submit your package. Especially for mechanical engineering. For civil, it's not the case, but I know for other states, it's different. It's backwards. You get approved first and then you sit.
Right.
So yeah, that's what's next, to actually get those letters after my name. and then yeah, start applying. Yeah, shout out to my boss. I don't think he'll ever hear this, but he didn't hold me back. He was the one that's like, okay, you need to, if you're gonna do this, I understand that I'm you're leaving my team, but yeah, you need to do this for you, for career development.
That's amazing to have that support. I feel
Mhm,
like you had a lot of the right pieces in place in terms of support, between
mhm,
your boss and your family and your
mhm,
in-laws, and
mhm.
just you have the right mentality about things. I think you were going to be successful no matter what, and I'm excited to just see where it all takes you. This is
I appreciate that. I
this is
appreciate
just one step in the journey for you.
Yeah, I appreciate the kind words. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, for sure. And obviously, I'll throw the compliment back at you. Couldn't have done it without you, literally. The 329 problems that I kind of memorized that I will soon forget. Hopefully not soon. But yeah. Well, thanks so much for you as well, Dan.
You're absolutely welcome. Any parting words for aspiring PEs that are just looking for a soundbite as they are getting
Soundbite.
inspired?
Yeah. Think of your why. Think of your commitment. Inspiration, motivation will wane. Commitment doesn't change. Stay committed.
Awesome. Thanks, Julian. Thanks for listening to the Mechanical PE Exam Prep Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review to help other engineers find the podcast. And if you're looking for a program that will help you pass the PE exam, check out the full access bundle available at mechanicalpeexamprep.com, and feel free to reach out with any questions. I would be honored to be your guide on the journey to becoming a professional engineer.